as soon as we go live, and we are live.
We're live, we're good to go.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another live Pin to Gas podcast on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Man, I hope everybody's day has been full of love, laughter, family, and proper mega wheelies. I hope everybody out there had the chance to watch the MotoGP race. If you haven't, no spoilers, right? They were all pretty good. But anyway, you guys know the deal and the routine. This episode is sponsored by Next Level Financial. Take control of your financial future. Get your complimentary financial analysis today by Seth Starnes. He's an absolute legend, and I highly recommend everybody do it. It's painless, it's quick, it's easy, and the end goal is to help you out, right? So what are you guys waiting for? Cameron, I tell everybody this. Don't buy an off-the-rack suit, because for 95% of us, it's not going to fit us correctly, right, Cameron? When you have a suit that does not fit you correctly, man, it hinders all kinds of stuff on a motorcycle, right? Causes all types of issue. So I tell people they need to go to bisontrack.com and get that full custom suit started, right? I have mine hung up right here in the background. This is actually my first ever custom suit, and since I gotten it and I put it on, I sold all my other suits. What's the point? Because they don't fit me correctly, right? And it makes a huge difference when you're on the motorcycle. It's quick, it's easy. The way they program it and have it all set up, it's super simple and easy to use. Morgan, Robert, and Tasha and Carter, they're some of the most amazing people you will ever meet or see. You guys know that's out here in Moto America. When you walk through the paddock, Cameron, dude, that's all you see. Bison suits everywhere, right? And I absolutely love it. And what sets them apart, Cameron, from everybody else is that they're at every Moto America race event. So if you happen to have a mishap, you can come and get it touched up with paint, get patches re-sewn on, get your suit, fixed right there on the fly, so you can make it out to your next session, qualifying, practice, or whatever it is. They will also, Cameron, let's say you're in an RBS suit, right, or Revit or whatever, you can go to Bison during that weekend too and give them your suit, and they will also fix it for you right there on the spot. And that separates them from everybody else out there. I'm not saying other leather brands are not good, because they're all proper mega, right? But what I'm saying is, when you're at the track, it's imperative you have somebody there in case something happens that's going to help you fix it right there on the spot, So bisontrack.com, people, you hear me talk about it all the time, but that's not why we're here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute honor to sit down with my mate in the 2023 BSB GP2 champion, Cameron Fraser. What is going on, buddy?
Hey, Chris. Yeah, everything's all good. Good, my side. Thank you very much for having me back on the podcast. It's been a little while, but yeah, appreciate you wearing my merch, and you've also got my championship-winning tee sat behind you on the left or right, whatever side it is. Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. Listen, the honor's all mine. I know I've been slacking. You're not the only one of my mates that's giving me a hard time, saying, "Bro, dude, I ain't heard from you in a while. Where you been? What's up?" Right? And partly of that is, well, not partly. It's all my fault. I will do better this year. I've just been flat out, man, trying to juggle the podcast, growing, getting a new job and getting into that schedule, and just juggling life, just like what you have, because you've been proper busy too, and we're going to get into all that. So yeah, it's been a journey, bro. It's been a proper mega journey, and it's been an honor too as well. So again, it's an honor to sit down and get to see you again and have a conversation, man. I've been so excited about this, Cameron. We have a lot to talk about too, mate, right? You've done a lot of things since last year. I had you on the podcast. Last year, you was actually racing in the GP2 class. Obviously, I know you switched because I'm a huge fan. I watch it all the time, and I post that all the time. So a lot of my American friends know exactly what BSB is now, right? And if they weren't really into it, they're into it now, and they know Cameron Fraser and Owen Meller and Luca Allen and all my mates that race, right? And that's important to me, man. It's because that also helps the sport grow too, and people here in America know exactly who the champ is, Cameron Fraser, right? And maybe one day you'll be over here in America racing, right? Which would be awesome. But anyway, Cameron, dude, let's get into it. So last year, like I said, 2023 GP2 champ. This year, you switched teams and manufacturers and classes too as well. Same class, but kind of different class, right? So let's get into it. The question I asked you before we went live is, what's it like changing, well, class, right? And on top of that, manufacturers and team too as well. How did you transition into that?
So it's a really good question. So I guess the first thing, the difference in terms of the bike specs is very different. So on a GP2 bike, you're very much on a lighter bike. It's got less power, but the idea is it's got a custom chassis, custom swing arm, and loads of little more tricked custom bits on there which separate it from your like standard road bike. So that's kind of like the first difference between a GP2 and say a Supersport bike. And obviously last year having a successful season over in the GP2 championship, we thought, well, the next step really is to go to Supersport. And the kind of biggest difference is in terms of, I guess, cost, because the idea of the GP2 championship was you kind of have a big upfront cost in buying the bike. But then in terms of running costs, it's not too high because you don't have to tune the engine. The maintenance isn't too difficult. And therefore the idea is it's, upfront cost and cheaper running through the season. But then obviously having success and winning the championship last year, we knew that we wanted to make the transition over to Supersport. And when the opportunity came up to ride a Suzuki, we thought it was probably the most cost-effective package to run on in the Supersport Championship. And also in terms of performance, it was looking to be a really strong package. So that's kind of what made us shift towards going in the Suzuki direction. I mean, there was some other bikes in the mix that we thought could be worth exploring, the Ducati being one of them. My dad's a big Ducati fan, so that was kind of why. But that package was quite a bit more expensive. So we thought, in terms of getting the best performance, but also the best cost-effective package, we thought the Suzuki was the route to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's big out here too. The GSXR 750, same thing, right? Because I think across the world, it's the same Ducatis versus GSXR 750s versus R6s and ZX6Rs and all that, right? And to me, if I was personally going to do it, best bang for the buck, best package, right? You buy the GSXR 750, but out here in America, we got to have a fly-by-wire actually installed on the bike, and it's like 10 grand out here in the US to do. So you get the Gixxer and you put the fly-by-wire on it, and then the ECU and all that goes along with it, and then it's a solid package. The motor's bulletproof, right? So basically it's oil changes and maybe spark plugs, right? Air filter cleans and radiator flush, and that's basically it, right?
Yeah, exactly that. And yeah, as you say, like compared to some of the other bikes like Yamaha R6 and the Kawasaki ZX6R, you're having to tune the engine regularly through the season. And obviously that costs a lot of money. Whereas, as you say, with the Suzuki 750, we have the same kind of rules over here where it's the fly-by-wire and the ECU. Again, similar sort of cost to over there as it is to here. But essentially that it almost restricts the engine slightly. So I think we're restricted to 92% throttle. At the start of the year, I think it was 85%, but then we got a little bit more towards the end of the season, which was nice. But yeah, the idea is that therefore we're not having to tune the engine. It's basically out of the box, standard engine, and off you go.
Right. And versus, and when I tell my friends this and they look at me like I'm freaking crazy, I'm like, bro, you don't understand. Like an R6 or a ZX6 motor to have it properly tuned from a well-known tuner, you're looking at $10,000. You know what I'm saying? If not more. So, and you're doing that several times a season, plus all the other costs that goes along with the R6 and hopping it up versus the 750. Like you said, fly-by-wire, ECU, oil changes, radiator changes. It's simple, it's easy, it's quick, and man, it's a fast weapon, right? And they handle really good. I always like the chassis on the Suzukis. They give great feedback right out the box,
Yeah, so one of the things I have to say, getting straight on the Suzuki from the GP2, was I thought the handling was similar in a sense. The only thing is, it's just a bit heavier. So with the
Yeah.
GP2, I think we were looking at 147 kilograms dry weight. The Suzuki's more like 165, 167 dry. So there is a little bit more weight, and obviously that kind of makes a little bit of a difference when you're trying to chuck the thing left to right. But again, it's got more power, so again you can use that power. to its advantage. And that's kind of one of the biggest things that I felt coming into the year. And the first time I ever rode the bike at Donington Park.
He was like, but but the GP2 chassis is a GP frame essentially, right? Super stiff. Going from that to a soft chassis is what I always call it, a production chassis, right? To me, and again, I explain it the best I can to people that don't understand. When I say soft chassis, it's designed from the manufacturers to handle first and foremost the road and everything that goes along with the road, all the bumps and all that, right? So it's tuned to have a certain amount of flex in it. Versus the GP chassis, it's still tuned to have a certain amount of flex in it, but it's different. The way you ride the bike, the way you turn in points, the whole nine. And then when you get on a production, once you're used to a GP chassis, I feel like it's a lot easier transition because all of a sudden you got all this feel, and the changes you normally make on a GP chassis that wouldn't give you a whole lot of feel give you way either a lot more feel or a lot less feel on a production chassis, So I feel like a setup of a production chassis is your window of range is pretty wide. And I'm not going to say, I guess, a little bit easier to set up and get into the area you need it to be versus a GP stiff chassis where you're kind of chasing your tail around, turning the bike upside down, super soft, super stiff, blah, 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 With that being said, Cameron, was that one of the biggest, obviously the biggest difference you felt going from the GP to a production-based chassis?
100%. And I think, to be fair, one of the things that helped was actually staying on the same suspension. So I run K-Tech on the Suzuki, and it's something I ran all the time on the GP2. So that's something that definitely helped with that transition. And as you say, on the Supersport bike, you do get a whole lot more feel. But what I did like about the GP2 is the chassis was kind of in the middle of like a full GP chassis and a more road spec production chassis. It was kind of in that balance. So with the GP2, I kind of always had quite a nice feeling with it because I'd always get the feedback. And again, so it wasn't too different from the Suzuki, which made the transition quite a lot easier. And I think, as you say, that's why when you see Moto2 riders from MotoGP, when they make the transition over to World Supersport, which we've seen with the likes of Bo Schneider very recently, and a few others like Jorge Navarro in the past, when they've made that step from Moto2 to Supersport, they've always done really well. And I think, as you say, it's because they get that feedback, and that just gives them the feel and enables them to push on and get to that limit a lot quicker.
Oh, 100%. And almost stay at that limit for a lot longer too, because you got, I don't know. I'm just speaking of hearing my friends talk about it that actually do it. It is always that fine line, but with a not as a stiff bike, it's easier to toe that fine line. And when you do have a mishap, it's almost like it warns you a little bit, right? Like you feel it versus something that's a lot stiffer. There is no warning. It just, and you're, what happened, right? Like I didn't do anything different. And you got to go back to the telemetry, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you pansy, you're doing this right here." You're like, "What?" Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's it's good to see you, Cameron, dude. It really is, bro. So let's talk about 2024. The season's over. All anybody got to do is go to my social media, BSB every race, right? It's and I tell everybody it's free, and it's BritishSuperbike.com. You can watch it for free, people. What a season. Not just for you. We'll get into that, right? But man, the last race was just like the last race last year, right? Kyle Ride and Tommy, it was intense, man. It was awesome. But this year, transitioning from the GP2 to the Super Sport, what expectations did you have coming into the sort of new class, right? And did you meet any of those goals that you had set?
So I think, yeah, at times, I mean, my initial goal was I wanted to be in touch with the sort of top 10, because on the GP2, that's kind of where I was. Obviously moving to a more powerful bike, the expectation is, well, I should naturally just be able to go faster straight away. But I think coming into the season, I had to be realistic, because obviously buying the bike and getting that built up at the start of the year, that cost a lot of money. and that impeded kind of a lot of or potential of testing. So I basically went from October last year right the way through to April without any riding whatsoever. And I mean, some of that is probably a little bad on my side because I do have a little training bike, a little CRF 150. That was getting some work done, so I didn't really push it to get finished. So again, I didn't really ride that at all in the winter either. So I literally went from October to April, about 7 months without stepping foot on a bike. So naturally, coming into the season, I was already kind of on the back foot. Obviously, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll go away to Spain, do a couple of tests, obviously get themselves up to speed, but also try some new things on the bike, whether it be suspension or new parts or whatever it might be. We didn't get that opportunity because we splashed all our cash and all our sponsorship money basically on getting this bike built up. So that left us a little bit short on cash from the start of the year. But the first time I rode the bike was Donington, and the feeling with it was pretty good. It was kind of, that's the other issue with the UK. In April, it was, you never know what you're going to get. It's either going to be hot, sunny, and you're going to have a great time, or it's going to be cold, wet, and windy. And we kind of got a mix of both at my first ever test on the bike. So again, that just limited the amount of time I actually had to get loads of laps in. And therefore, my expectation was, I'd love to straight away be in that top 10, but had to be realistic and say, okay, we're starting on the back foot. It's going to probably take a bit of work, but if we can get in the top 15 and progress from there, then that'll be great.
Yeah, and of course I watched y'all season long, cheering for you, right? As I do all my other mates. It's I being on this side of the pond watching you, man, I think you did a proper mega job this season, right? Just with all those factors you just said in, which I didn't know you wasn't on the bike for 7 months, but that just highlights the legend you are and how quick you are and how well you adapted. Because not only did you learn a new bike and a team and all that, you already know the tracks, but the competition got even more stronger too as well, right? So that adds another monkey wrench in the whole program. You know what I mean?
100%. That's I was just going to say, the thing with this year is the competition has been heavy, which is a good thing. Like, everyone wants to see a competitive class, but I think we had something crazy like 60 entries coming into the year in the Supersport class. Obviously, only 40 people are actually allowed to race on the Saturday and Sunday, which means, unfortunately, some people do have to go home if they don't qualify. But that in itself just demonstrates how like tough the class is, and you've got the legends like Alistair Seeley and Jack Kennedy and Benker. All these lads have been doing it obviously year in year out for multiple times, and the likes of Jack Kennedy, he's now, I think he's 4 or 5-time British Supersport champion. It's like you are competing with some proper class riders, which is nice. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not here to make up the numbers. I want to be getting to the front of the class and winning races as well. But sometimes it takes time, and that's what I'm fully aware of and understand.
It does, but Cameron, iron sharpens iron, right? So you get out there and you actually get a tail on Jack Kennedy, and you're next thing you know, you're a lap in practice or qualifying or whatever, and you're still behind him. You're like, you done elevated your game because you get to see his turning points, where he gets on the throttle, where he's braking at, whatever braking marker or tree or bush or whatever it is you use on the track, right? Rumble strip, this one, whatever it is, because I know not everybody uses brake markers, right? Some people do it by just feel, sound of the engine, just the whole vibe and becoming one with the motorcycle, but iron sharpens iron. And dude, you absolutely killed it this season, man. You did a great job. I can't wait to see 2025 and we get this back on it right there. That number one, everybody see that right there? Yeah, that's it. That's that number one, boy. So you will be there for sure, 110%. Again, like you said, it takes time. It takes patience, and the thing that I did notice too about you this year is I noticed your riding style changed a little bit, and that had to do coming from a GP2 to the GSXR 750. And with me saying that, did you find it a little bit challenging to change your riding style up to adapt to the bike, right? Because I feel like, me personally, all the years I've been riding and doing track days, I feel like when I get on somebody else's bike or I get a new toy, right, a new woman in the garage, when I take her out and I ride her, even though I try to do these suspension changes and all this, right, I find it where if I adapt myself more to the bike to get the best out of it is right now as it's set up, I feel like I progress further along instead of getting lost doing all these suspension changes and stuff like that. So
That's it. It's always about finding that middle ground and that balance. So for sure, there was a bit to do in terms of adapting to a bigger bike, so slightly more power, obviously a heavier motorcycle. I've been on the GP2 for about 3.5, 4 years, so there was going to definitely be some element of change when it came to change adapting my riding style. But the biggest thing for me this year actually was understanding that you still need to ride the bike almost like a GP2, but making most use out of the power. So what I mean by that is, for me, I thought, oh, coming to a more powerful bike, I can carry less corner speed, and it's just a case of almost making V's out of the turns. And what I soon realised is actually that's not. You still need to carry the corner speed, because if you're quicker through the corner, you're already carrying more speed out the corner as you look to accelerate. So for me, that was kind of one of the biggest things. Obviously, it's again another level when you go to 1,000. You've got even more power, and it's a case of you do need to make sure you're getting or taking the line and the corner speed that gives you the best exit. On like the 750, it's kind of that middle ground between the GP2 and 1,000, where you still need the maximum corner speed and you need the best exit, because most of the time the time on a lap time or on the track or whatever is coming out of the corner. So for me, that was kind of one of the biggest things is you still need to carry as much corner speed as possible, but also you need to make best use of the power you've got. And in
yeah,
this case on the Suzuki, it's more than what I had on the GP2.
and I guess as we're talking about, I vision my head. You're right. You know, you still carry pretty good corner speed, right? But it's almost like you pick the bike up earlier, the heavier jixer earlier, because you have that little bit more power and you get on the throttle a little bit more sooner, right? It's not, I guess, as revvy as your GP2 bike, right? It don't rev as high.
That's it. Yeah, it doesn't rev as
Yeah,
high, and as you say, yeah, it's kind of standing the bike up a little bit earlier and getting on the power earlier if you can, as well as obviously carrying the corner speed. But it's interesting you reference about almost not having to go too much into depth with the suspension stuff, almost like making use out of what you've got, because that's what we've done a lot, not only this year but over my racing career. Is we usually get a nice base setting with suspension, and then we kind of just make little tweaks from there. But one thing I'm really keen to do over the winter, if we can do a couple of tests, is to just try a load of new things out and find out if there's certain settings within the GP2, not the GP2, the Suzuki, that work really well for my riding style. And obviously, when you're testing, you have all the time in the world. You can try things back to back to see, what the actual different feeling is. The only issue is at a race weekend, you're limited on time. We have 2 free practices and a qualifying, and that's kind of all the time you have to actually test things out. Because after that, you're then wanting to try and get the best result you can. And again, the other thing is when you get to free practice 1, a lot of the time you're there just because it's the first session, you're building yourself up, getting up to speed again. And then, so therefore, you don't want to do anything drastic because you don't know if it will then work for FP2, because maybe you weren't as up to speed, you weren't going as fast. And then you come to FP2 and then you say, oh, the bike feels horrible, but it's because you're almost riding at slightly different speeds. So there's quite a lot going on at race weekend that makes you maybe not want to try too many drastic things, and that's why like preseason testing is crucial.
it is. So a question, Cameron, like when you go preseason, let's say you have the opportunity, right, to go preseason testing. Obviously, you sit down with your team and you guys come up with a game plan, obviously, but before you get to Navarro or whatever track you guys are going to go test at, what walk us through a testing weekend? Like, what do you normally focus on during the weekend? And do you guys actually bring new parts to it too as well? Or is it just utilizing what you have?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a mix. Depends on what you have really. So for us, typically, um, depending on what track we go to, it might be a 4-day test, for instance, and you come there with a bit of a plan. You say, day 1, I'm just going to get up to speed, get my sharpness back, and then from day 2 to day 4, we're basically just going to try new things, whether that be geometry, suspension, any new parts. So, for instance, within the Supersport category, there's a few things we can do with geometry, like an adjustable headstock. We've got I mean, I'm not the most technical person, so I can't go into too much detail because I'll just be chatting shit really, and yeah, not able to give the proper details. But yeah, there's like different parts you can try. The yokes was something, having this new yoke that we could put on, which basically meant we could drop the forks even further through the stroke, again to maybe help with turning. There's all these little bits which you're not hesitant to try at a race weekend, but you don't want to almost go too far out there, because if it doesn't work, it can potentially destroy the weekend. So yeah, when you come to a preseason test, that's kind of like the plan you have. You say day 1, just use all old tires. We'll go out, get loads of laps in, get up to speed, get braking markers sorted, turning points, get used to the bike sliding again, and then come day 2, day 3, and day 4. Let's maybe try a few things on old tires, stick a new tire in, see if it feels any different, and then yeah, just go from there. That's when we start to maybe look at lap times, and that's again where you can look at the data and compare different things and say, oh, the bike was turning in nicer at these corners, or the bike felt awful, let's scrap that and go a different direction.
Yeah, you're right. And people, there's no such thing as a perfect setup motorcycle. It's always a compromise, right? So meaning saying that Cameron's at Donington, his motorcycle is not going to be perfect through the whole circuit at Donington, right? It gets better in areas, but when you get better in areas, it makes a negative effect in other areas too, as well, on the motorcycle. So I just want to clear that up, because I think there's a lot of misconception that there's a perfect setup to a motorcycle. If that was the case, it would be everybody would punch it in, right? And yeah, it's just not true. It don't happen, right? There's so much adjustability. You got swing arm angles, pivot points, trail and rake, and man, it goes on and on and on. Cameron, I feel you. I'd get lost in all that too. I'd be like, look, this is what I'm feeling. You guys do what you got to do and let me go back out and ride, right?
Yeah, that's 100%. And as you say, it is definitely a compromise as to what direction you go. Certain changes, you might be able to get a base level where you've kind of it works for everything, but there's still little areas where it might not be 100% what you want. So for instance, it might be that under braking, you're struggling to get it stopped, but through the fast corners, it's turning amazing and you're making up loads of time. And therefore, depending on the track, you'll go, okay, well, maybe we'll go towards the one where we get to make up loads of time through the corners and just make it a little bit more difficult for ourselves to overtake. But if you're on like a stop-start circuit, you might opt for something more where it's like, okay, I want the bike to stop now because a lot of overtaking chances. There's not many fast corners, so I don't really need it to turn really well. But yeah, as I say, it is always just a big compromise and finding that balance that you like.
It is, and with saying that, man, you said it. It was awesome the way you put that, right? And not a lot of fast corners, or if there is a lot of fast corners, you change your riding style to try to adapt the best you can through that section of the track. So whether it's a little bit more smooth or trail braking a little bit less, whatever it is, right? You're constantly doing that throughout practice, qualifying, and the race too, trying to make it feel better in the areas that it don't feel so good, right? But that's what the beauty about motorcycle racing is too. It's all big. Well, it's like a relationship in real life. It's just a compromise, right? Like that's exactly it, man. Oh, so we actually got a couple comments coming in, and of course, Craig O'Harris, what is up, mate? He says, "Sup, guys? Getting Cameron on the pod. Just about to jump on a flight back to the UK, so we'll catch up when I'm back. Much love, guys." It's always much love, Craig. Have you met Craigo?
I don't think so. Does he go to BSB a lot?
He does. He club races a lot too.
Awesome. Yeah, he might have come around. Like obviously, as you know, the paddock's so open, so we speak to so many different people across like the whole weekend. So it's always nice to meet new faces. And to be fair, we probably have spoken. Name's just not coming straight to me.
Yeah, you probably have, because he's a BSB fanatic just like I am, right? So yeah, it's that's how I am. I gotta talk to everybody, right? Say hi, what's up, blah 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 blah. You know, so yeah. Actually, we got a buddy of mine here in the U.S., Matt Hall. He has a question for you. He says, "How does the GSXR stack up against the new bikes out there?"
That's a very good question. I'd say quite well, to be fair. As I mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's a very cost-effective package for the performance you're getting. I'd have to say the Ducatis are the most competitive. Like, I think if money was no object, we'd all jump on one because they're beautiful bikes and they're very fast. And I think they're not too difficult to ride. Not that I've ridden one, but it's just from an outside perspective what I see. But yeah, the Gixxer itself is a lovely bike to ride. It handles really nicely, and it's got good punch out the corners. So yeah, compared to the GP2, for me it was lovely when I'm against other bikes like the Yamaha and the Kawasaki. It punches a little bit better out the corners, and then again that makes life a bit easier when overtaking. But it is interesting because there's certain tracks in the UK where the Gixxers and the Ducatis didn't go quite as well as the likes of the Honda and Yamahas. So Thruxton is one of them. That's the fastest track in the UK. I'm pretty sure we average speeds of like 108 to 112 miles an hour, I think. And it's a very top end track. We're doing very fast corners, fourth, fifth, sixth gear for most of the way around the track. And I think the more grunty bikes like the Ducatis and the Gixxers, we just struggled a little bit on top end, and that's where the Yamahas and the Kawasaki's they performed really well and really strong. So I think it depends on the track as well. We'll get to somewhere like Knock Hill, which is quite a short stop started track, and again that's where I think the Suzuki and the Ducatis are slightly stronger.
Yeah, for sure. And that also goes along with the Ducati and the Gixxer being detuned. You can't have 100% throttle and your power's down too, but you guys make it up in torque, right? You guys are a lot more torque. So low RPM, you don't have to probably do as many shift changes as you did on a 600. You can keep third and hold third actually through this corner, then going from second to third and back down to second. You can just keep it one gear. And it does make a difference when you're on top end because the bikes are restricted, right? And I just find it like, man, the state of racing we're in now, Cameron, right? It's beautiful. We're in this transition of our sport in all road racing, right? Because back in the day when you started and your dad was racing and riding too, a 600 was 599 cc's and below, right? But now that I look at it, now of course there's Ducati 595s and GSXR 750s and 675s and all this 636s in it. When I go back through time and I look at it, Kawasaki was the first one to race a 636 against the 600s, right? And I think that's where the door started to open for the future of bigger bikes coming in, and they calling them super sport and making it pretty much to where it is today, right? I don't think that it was just a year in thinking where somebody FIM and Moto America and all that kind of come up with it. I think it's been a progression in a long time kind of coming, so to speak, right? The 1000s, they're not selling. Nobody's buying 1000s anymore on the street. It's not like it used to be when Cameron win on the GP2 chassis. Well, you can't really buy a GP2 bike for the street, but let's just say it wasn't, right? And you could buy this bike on the street, right? Of course, you would help sell a lot of them, but that's not the case anymore because nobody's got $30,000 to go and buy a new 1000, right? Which is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Where they can afford to go out and buy a $12,000 GSXR 750. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's 12 grand, but I assume it's probably around 12 grand.
Yeah.
So it's looking at that and the way that the racing is going in Headman, I think it's beautiful. But I think for us older generation that's been a fan of the sport, that watched it get to where it was, man, I miss the good old days too, so to speak, right? The 600s, proper good 600s, and the 750s were the super bikes, right? And yes, they allowed the 1000s versus 750s because you got 2 cylinders versus 4 cylinders and yada yada yada, all that stuff that goes along with it, right? I wonder if in the future that the super sport is going to be the new superbike class, and the superbike's going to be more of a super stock class. What do you think on that? What's your thoughts? Couldn't talk there for a second.
That's it's a really hot topic, I think, over here in the UK. So very interesting question you asked there. First thing I want to point out, though, you spoke about the RPM and difference between like the top end bikes and like the Ducatis and the Gixxers, like a true technician and engineer there. So well done there. You smashed that. But yeah, in terms of the super sport class potentially being almost like the main class, at the end of the day, manufacturers want to sell motorcycles, and as you rightly point out, they're not selling a lot of thousands, which for me as a motorcycle fan, I find interesting, because if I was to go out there and get a bike, I think for the road, I'd love to get 1,000, love to get like a Ducati Panigale V4S or Superleggero, anything like that. Obviously, a lot of money, but I think they are fun bikes. However, for the roads, you're not able to make best use of that power, because if you live in a city, you're going to be doing 30 everywhere, and most of the time the speed limits over here are 60 miles an hour, 70 on a motorway or a dual carriageway. Again, it can be quite busy, so you're not going to be stretching the power. You're going to be sitting probably at first, second, third gear at most. I mean, for instance, most thousands will do 70 miles an hour in first gear. So it's like you're not even going to be going through the gearbox, which is crazy when you think about it. So it's like I can completely understand why they're not really selling, and therefore manufacturers, they do these race series like World Supersport, like British Supersport, like Moto America Supersport Championship, because they want to sell bikes. So if the thousands aren't selling, then why are they going to want to keep putting money into a superbike championship? So I think, from what I understand in the UK, it very well could be the last year of stock 1,000. And I mean, I don't know what they'd replace it with, but next year apparently is going to be the last year of that class running. And then maybe in a year or two's time, the Supersport class will then move into and mold into the Superbike class, which again could be quite interesting, because I mean, the Supersport category itself provides quite entertaining racing. The bikes themselves, as you again reference, we've got the Ducati 959s, they're almost 1,000cc. Got the Triumph 765s, the Suzuki 750s. Tune these engines, and you're pretty much going to be almost getting 1,000cc power out of them. So it's definitely going to be interesting over the next couple of years to see what direction the different series go. But even in World Supersport next year, we've got the Yamaha R9. So it'll be so interesting to see how that gets on. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they're using the MT-09 engine, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is a 3-cylinder.
Yep.
So again, it'll be interesting to know what they do, because I'm pretty sure that engine itself is actually not too powerful at the moment. I think it's 128 horsepower or 132 or something like that.
Yeah, it's equivalent to your R6 and your ZX6Rs, maybe a little bit more. Obviously, it's got a little bit more torque because of the 3 cylinders. But yeah, it's a man. I love a triple too. They're fun to ride. They sound good.
They sound good. They definitely sound good.
They're like, Cameron, to me, they're like a V4, which to me, I'm a twin person, dude. There's nothing like a V twin, right? But the downfall of the V twin is we don't have the revs. Well, now Ducati does, but they're V4s, are not V twins no more, right? So V twins, you got these two big pistons, you red line at 10, 11,000 RPMs, but you got this flat torque curve, you just right everywhere. The triple is more like it's revvy, it revs a lot more, but man, it makes torque pretty much throughout the whole rev range, right? And it's got top end. V4, same way, right? You get the best of both worlds, the twin and the inline forks. You got the bottom end, you got the top end, and dude, that sound is just right?
Tasty.
It is, man. It is. So like back in the day, we had a class out here in it's Moto America, back when it was AMA Superbike racing. We had a Formula Extreme class where we had 600s where you could tune them to Superbike levels, right? So it was dude, I always loved that class. It was proper, man. You had little 600s making like 160 horsepower. It's like, what? It's crazy. But yeah, it's man, it's interesting to see where we're going to transition to in our sport, right? Again, you're right. Day and age now, 1000s on the street, man. They're just it's a lot, dude. Nobody really needs 220 horsepower for the street, right? Do we want it? Absolutely, we want it, right? But like you said, we can't use it, man. You just can't really use it. But I think that I don't know, we'll see. That's why I think we're living in a great, well, anytime we're living, it's always great, right? But we're in this transition in road racing that an evolution of it, so to speak, that only happens every once in a while. And it's good to be part of it and see the progression of which way it's going to go, right? And where we're going to end up at the end of the day. So I'm anxious to see that new R9, man. I got buddies out here that actually got body work on them and stuff like that. So I can't wait to see what's really going to happen with it. I want to ride one, to be honest with you.
Are they allowing the R9s in Moto America next year, or is it going to be another year or two before they come in?
From my understanding, they're going to be in next year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think they will. So, and just road racing these days, it's just so expensive, man. And that's why I love certain programs. Like we have a program out here called BTR, right? Build Train Race by Royal Enfield, where it's strictly just a woman's class, right? But I think they need to do it for all classes, right? And men and women. But basically, what they do is when they first started it, you couldn't have any track experience at all, right? Of course, you were a street rider, and they brought you in. Um, you learned how to work on the bike. You built your own race bike. You did your own clip-ons, your chain. Did you get your tires changed? Like you do everything, right? Which is good because when you show up on the race weekend, you do it all. Now you learn this bike inside out. So when you move up to the next bike, you already know what to do because you've had that training, right? And at the end of the season, they get to keep the bikes. And the entry into this BTR, once you get accepted, it's not a lot of money, right? And they fly you around or you drive to the races and get on the bike and you ride. I think it's a great program because it's a cheap way of getting into racing, right? You have a cheap way of getting into racing. You're going to bring more people into our paddock and people are going to be willing to come out versus, I mean, I don't know how it is out there. Well, I got a pretty good idea, but your average season out here, even in Junior Cup, is a lot of your average working moms and dad really struggle to pay that even at the lowest entry level, right? That's why I love the WEC championship. Yes, again, it's all women, right? But I'm not referring to that. I think it's an absolute proper mega value of a class. And if they can do it for them, do it for the futures of our sport, people getting into it, or even Cameron Fraser, right? Where you pay 20,000 euros and that's for the whole, that's all you pay for the whole season. You don't get to keep the bike, but we can afford that. Now we're talking, right? Now more people are going to come into it, right? Instead of
That's it.
having, yeah. So I just feel like in order for our sport to grow too, we need to come up with a cheaper way to introduce and get new people into the paddock. Because if not, it's just going to be the same people and only the rich can play.
100%. And I think it's
So
still filters like that,
it
even
does.
as you go up the rankings as well. So even in the likes of Supersport and to some extent, some people in British Superbikes were still having to fork out quite a lot of money to be there. And I think there's kind of two ways of looking at it. Partly is maybe down to the race organisation and how everything's set up in the paddock, which enables the race organisers to maybe take quite a lot of money and perhaps maybe not give as much back. Um, I mean, I sort of we dive into a little bit about that in my Riders to Five YouTube videos. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch any of those, but we kind of go behind the scenes and we talk about the cost of actually running within British Supersport. People will know it's very expensive. Tyre bill is probably one of the biggest things where we're paying Pirelli full price for a set of tyres a weekend. We go through four minimum. So you're looking at £1,800 for just in tyres for a race weekend, and things like race fuel. Again, it's £250 a race weekend. It equates to about I think £4.50 a litre, which if we were buying petrol from a pump over here in the UK, it's like £1.20, £1.30. So they've jacked up the price of that because they can, because they say you have to run this fuel, otherwise you're not allowed to participate. So there's a lot of nuances like that which just make the sport stupidly expensive. And from my opinion, it doesn't necessarily need to be like that. And I think if you speak to most of the paddock, it's the same sort of story. But in terms of how British Superbikes is run, I can't fault the organisers because they do a great job, and the racing is always interesting, as we see with Tommy Bribel and car rides at the last race of the year in British Superbikes. So there's a lot they do right, and there's probably some things that they could maybe do a little bit better and make things more affordable for those that are having to fork out their own pockets and sponsors' pockets to do the thing that we love.
Oh yeah, for sure. Stewart's doing an amazing job with BSB, and I had the honor to actually meet Stewart. He actually talked to me for like 10 minutes, which kind of blew my mind because I know he's super busy, and I think because there's not a lot of Americans that come out there, right? And then my accent and twang, and I'm like, Stewart, what is up? And he kind of looked at me like, holy shit, dude, this energy this guy's got, And I'm like, bro, dude, yeah. So, yeah, he's doing an amazing job out there, and you're right. It's like that out here. I wish, we run Dunlops, but my issue is same thing you have too, right? It's like, why are you going to charge us full price when you're the spec tire manufacturer? I understand for track day people, that's fine. But when you got a professional racer in there that's paying just to get there, you figured they'd make it a little bit cheaper because you're right. The tire bill is the most expensive part of the weekend because without good tires, you're not going fast, right? It's all people. It's all adapting the motorcycle to those two black round things that you're sitting on. That's it, right? So,
Wait, so back in the day, what they used to do is they would have different tire manufacturers. So you'd have like Michelin, you'd have Bridgestone, Dunlop, Pirelli, and whoever else. And essentially, they would drop the prices of their tires, and especially if you were doing really well for one manufacturer, other manufacturers would probably try and poach you and say, well, we'll give you free tires for the whole weekend if you just run ours and do well. So there was a point in time where there was different manufacturers, but yeah, now it is just Pirelli. So they're great tires. Again, can't fault the tires, can't fault the service because obviously we go there, we're having them constantly change the different tires for us, whether it's wet, dry, or intermediate conditions. But again, yeah, it's just a price thing, and this is such an expensive sport which drains our pocket. So it'd be nice if there was maybe if they could make it more cost effective for us.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what I say on that? Bring the tire wars back into it. Allow Bridgestone to come back in. Allow Dunlops to come back in, right? Not only would that, people have different feel. So Cameron might be super fast on Bridgestones, jumps on Dunlops, and struggles for a little bit because people see black round, a medium compound. But what they fail to realize is you could take a 120/70 from a Pirelli and a 120/70 from a Dunlop and stick them side by side. One's going to have a flatter curve, one's going to have a taller profile. So now the geometry of your motorcycle is done changed, plus the way it reacts and the way it makes your bike handle, right? You got to get used to when the grip comes in on this tire, because on this other tire I'm used to almost right away, right? But when it falls off, it falls off. Or this one, I got to get used to it coming in and then kind of slowly going out, not just a sudden drop. Man, there's so many factors that go along with it, but I think it would elevate, bring out almost an easier time on people, right? When they find that tire that they really like and they gel well with, right? But then it would also elevate the what's the word I'm looking for? The progression of tires, because if you got one tire like Dunlop, where's the competition coming from? So how much more are they really trying to develop that tire instead of saying they completely developed a tire because they changed a couple little compounds in it? Now it's like a different type of soft, right? I'm not saying it's not expensive for them to do that, but I feel like if we had tire wars in there, it would also elevate the game of our road tires now, which it does come from race tires, right? But now you can pick and choose, right? So let's say you're doing really good on Bridgestones, and they'd be like, Bridgestone come up to you, like you said, and be like, hey, you got 1,000 Bridgestone bucks because you done finished on the podium 3 or 4 times, right? And you take that $1,000 and it buys you, let's say, 4 sets of tires, realistically, right? But that's 4 sets of tires that you don't have to pay for. You know what I mean? Plus, my thing with Dunlop is, why do we have an American Dunlop and a French Dunlop? If Dunlop's going to bring their real race tires over here, bring the French race tires over here, so everybody in the world knows that it's better than our tires we have over here. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know. It could be the water they put in it, right? I don't know, right? But I just feel like plus, this was saying this, there's certain riders in the paddock that get the best of the best of the best of the tires, meaning that they get the brand new tires that were made just probably 2 nights ago versus somebody mid-packer in the back that's got, it's the same tire, but it's 8 months old. And there is a difference.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where there can be some discrepancy, and that's why having one manufacturer can also be beneficial, because it means that everyone's getting the same thing.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. There's you never know with these things. You never know. Maybe they keep some special tires at the back for those at the front. Who knows?
Well, it's to me, it's not the special tires. It's ones that have just been made 2 or 3 days ago, right? So the date code on them's like literally this month, and then you walk through the paddock and you look at some of my buddies, and they just got them changed and put on, and I'm like, dude, this is 8 months old, but homeboy over here's got some that are actually dated for this month, right? And now you don't know how the tires were stored. Hot, cold, of course, it's professional, so I'm sure they were in a controlled environment. But still, right? It
can make a difference. It can be small percentages that mean you're finishing 10th to first. Like, it can be a couple of tenths a lap, and if that couple of tenths is just coming from a fresher tire, then of course you're going to be saying, why am I not getting the fresher tire?
ladies and gentlemen, there you go, right? But I just wanted to put that out there because it does happen in our sport, right? And I'm sure it happens in NASCAR and F1 and all that stuff too. But I don't know. That's just an assumption. You know how assumptions go. It's just my my observation when I walk around, right? Because Cameron, one thing I love to do is I can't wait to come back out to BSB and hang out with all you guys. But I love to step back during the weekend after I set all my highs and all that, and I like to watch. Let's say, for instance, you and your team, and the way you do your setup, and the way things ain't going right, the way you and your team actually work and come together when everybody's kind of struggling, and the energy that's going on. I love to see that, because when things are not always going as planned, which this is racing, it happens quite often. The team that keeps a cool head and still believes in you, Cameron, 110%, right? No matter what, tend to make it easier over time to come out of that slump versus some teams that might yell and scream or throw something, and now the energy levels done come down, right? And it's not a good vibe, right? It's very important to have that good vibe at all times within the paddock. And the main reason why I say that is for the legend right here on TV, right? Cameron and everybody else that races. Is very important to have a rider and his team around him to be positive no matter what, right? And believe in you 110%. If you on a team and things ain't going right, and somebody starts not to believe in what you say, now it's a mental barrier up in your head, because you're like, oh, wow, I'm saying the front's doing this, and they look at me like, nope, we ain't changing nothing, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. Now you know that they don't believe in you 110%, so it makes your job a whole lot harder, especially mental, man. It's hard to break that, so it's very important to and that's one thing I love to do, man, sit back and watch and see how everybody comes together like Voltron, right? And just knocks it out the park. Everybody's cool, high-fiving, hugging, and yeah, it's man, motorcycle race is such a beautiful thing, man. I love it, but that too, that also has a lot. Look, Crago, he's making me laugh, Cameron. He says when we was talking about earlier. He says my perfect setting is getting the bloody thing to start when I hit the button.
What bike's he on? The 750?
No, he don't. Man, Crago, what bike are you? I think I want to say, is it a Bandit? He does a lot of track days, in club racing. I want to say he had a Bandit, if I'm not mistaken. But Crago, if you're still listening, put up there what you have. My buddy Matt Hall says the 1000s are a product of their own success, meaning manufacturers have strived to make the best superbike. Downside is now they are ridiculously expensive and no mortal man can get everything out of the bike. I mean, I can't argue with that.
Yeah. No, and definitely in agreement.
Yeah, I mean, again, dude, you look at people are like, more horsepower, 250, 260 horsepower. Take all that electronics off of it, then try to ride it. You can't. You won't, right? It's just got so much tire. Now, with that being said, if a manufacturer was able to make a tire to handle that, then it would be possible. You know what I mean? But you still have to have, of course, some electronics and some rider aids in it. But then Craig O'Hare says, that's it for the roads. A 600, 750 is plenty to have. Great fun on the roads without expensive 1000 price tag. I've had 1000s, but I love the 600. It's just great fun, man. I love my 600. Well, I had a 600. I had a ZX6R that I was actually going to transform into my track bike, but I sold it and bought an RC51. And nice. I love my RC51. It's a 2003. It just hit 16,000 miles on it. Yes, it's a 1000, but my RC51 is heavy. It's not fast. Well, for 2002, it was fast, right? But dude, a 600 would absolutely annihilate my 1000. The RC50. I mean, it would just eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? They don't look as good and it don't sound as good, right? And it's beautiful, but you don't, man. I think I tell people like this too, Cameron. I'm a big advocate for people racing smaller bikes, 300s and 400s, because it teaches you so much about really how to ride, the art of riding. Not out here on the street riding. Everybody thinks, oh, I need a 1000. I don't need a 400. I can outride a 400 in 6 months. And I'm like, hold up. Absolutely not. Let me take you out here. Let's put Finn Wheaton on a little 400, right? And I'll put you on your little 750 or 1000. We can go to whatever track you want to. And I guarantee Finn's probably going to lap you, right? And embarrass you. So that also is part of, we're men. We got big egos, man. So we got to have the biggest, baddest thing there is out there, right? But I think the smaller bikes, man, teaches you so much more about not only racecraft and drafting and trail braking and corner speed, because they make 39 horsepower, right? So it don't have enough power to get out of a draft, meaning if you wasn't in a draft, you're not passing nobody, right? I mean, let's just put it that way. But yeah, it's big advocate, man. Smaller bikes, 110%.
Yeah,
stay on the smaller bikes.
Yeah, you're so right in terms of that's why when we're kids we start on small bikes, because that's where you learn your racecraft. It's where you learn your corner speed. Corner speed is king at the end of the day. And if you're one of those guys that has 1000 and been riding on the road, doesn't mean you're going to get anywhere near the most out of it on a track just because you've handled it on the road. So yeah, 1000%. If you're new to riding on circuits, I'd always recommend get yourself on a smaller bike, because that's where you'll learn your corner speed. That's where you'll learn your racecraft. And on a bigger bike, it's naturally it is going to be easier because you've got all this power. You don't need to carry any corner speed. You can just fire the thing out the corners, and you can overtake loads of people because they're on slower bikes. Obviously, that's if you're in like a beginner group on a track day with other beginners on slow bikes. But as you say, you stick someone like a Finn Whedon on a 400 in the advanced group on a track day, there'll be people on thousands, even riding in there, that he'll just be overtaking them through the corners. And then it'll come to a straight. Yes, they'll get him back. But again, through the corners, he'll just be nipping through people. And I remember my time on a pretty super team, which was one of the RS 125s. And I'd used to go to a track day, whatever track it would be, and it'd be the same story, just be weaving in and out of people, get to the straight, they'd all come back past. And then again, I'll just be weaving in and out of people. And it's like, There's a reason we're overtaking through the corners. Like, you can almost carry the speed. You can carry the same speed as us, and yeah, if you were, then we wouldn't be able to do what we do. But yeah, it's just telling people and convincing them that put the ego aside, get yourself on a smaller bike, learn what you need to do, and then that will transfer as you go up the CCs.
100%. And I tell people this too. I'm like, there's a reason why you see the VR46 Ranch, and not only them, but a lot of the well-known household names during the off season. What do they train on? Smaller bikes, because they're still learning. Everybody's learning constantly. You think Pecco Bagnaia knows everything? Absolutely not. Does he know a whole lot more than me? Absolutely he does, right? But if he knew it all, he'd win it all. Nobody wins it all, right? So you are constantly in an evolution state as a motorcycle rider or racer, because track conditions change, therefore you got to change, right? New bikes come out, you got to adapt to that, man. There's electronics, all that, the whole evolution of it. So it's but when you go back down to the smaller bikes, man, they're so much fun. I have so much more fun riding a Grom 125 with my leather suit on, going out here in parking lots, just thinking I'm Cameron Fraser, dragging my elbow everywhere, right? Versus getting on my RC51 and being in a 45 miles an hour zone with traffic and stoplights, my inner leg cooking, and the bike 211 degrees and the fan constantly on. I'm like, dude, this sucks ass, right? And that's what it's about, is the fun, and the smaller bikes teaches you so much more than a bigger bike is going to be. And the main reason why I say that is again, 250 horsepower. I don't care who you are. You're scared of it. You're intimidated by it. And when you're intimidated by it, you're not going to push yourself because you already know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Versus you get on something that has 40 horsepower, you're like, all day, baby. Like, you're not scared of it. Therefore, you're focusing on the feel of the motorcycle, the suspension, the corner speed, the trail braking or whatever, versus you're on something big and powerful. The only thing you keep saying is yourself, holy shit, break, break. Oh, holy shit. So it's
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying there, to be fair. And even like now, when you ride so if I ride my CRF 150, there's so many transferable skills you can learn on that, and you can be trying new things out on that bike, whether it be riding style, whether it be just rider positioning, whether it be just getting used to, trail braking into a corner, using the throttle and the brake as an on-off switch, and just driving good habits into your riding, which then you can transfer onto a bigger bike. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that point.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Yeah. And then we got the legend himself, Martin Adams from the Clothing Kings. What is up, Martin? Martin's awesome, man. He actually I'm on his thing, man. He actually makes my merch out there. We've been together for over a year now. And yeah, man, I love, actually, you have one of the Clothing King shirts, pinned to gas, that I sent you. There's only very few people in this world that has that shirt, and you, my friend, are one of them.
Part of the exclusive club. Love that. I mean, I did try and find it actually. It's in I have a big pile of t-shirts that I regularly train in and go through quite quickly. Couldn't find it though in the short space I had on time, because as I was saying to you before we jumped on the podcast, obviously the clocks went back in the UK. So I thought it was 6 p.m. that we were starting. Actually, it was 5 p.m. And I was at the gym. I was just doing hot off an interval training session. And I remember I got to the end of the training session. I was there like, oh, I've only got like 20 minutes. Okay, I need to rush back. And then, I couldn't find it in time. But next podcast run, I'll get it on.
It's all good, mate. I appreciate all the love and support too, man. It's I say this quite often. I never envisioned I'd be podcasting, much less being where I am. It's an honor, and being so well received and loved by everybody, and genuinely love what I do. Look, my man Martin, dude, I love Martin. He says, I can send you one. Boom, there it is, Cameron. Let's do it, Martin, for sure. 100%. And dude, I talk about the Clothing Kings all the time, dude. I run his logo dude, his logo is on my leather suit, on all my shirts I have made out here. I always support all my mates from around the world. Absolutely. And then Matt Hall says spec fuel and tires are the bane of racing. Absolutely, it is. But that I see. I agree. How do I want to word this? I see the benefit of having a spec fuel
Me
because
too.
you can't buy the more expensive fuel. We're going to get 5%, 10% more horsepower, and the other people don't. So I get that, right? But as far as the tires, man, let's bring back the tire wars, people. Stewart, I know you're listening. Bring them back, man. Right? It's yeah, I think it's good for our sport. We're actually going to transition it into Martin, dude, you are amazing. Let me have the address and size for Cameron, and I'll sort it
Oh,
out.
legend.
Bro, I will get it to you. Absolute legend. As soon as we go off live right here, Martin, I will WhatsApp you his mailing address and all that. And
Appreciate that, Martin.
Yes, dude. I'm telling, dude. I tell everybody that. Even out, he my friends are here in America. I'm like, bro, the Clothing Kings, you need to get on the Clothing Kings for sure. He is an amazing human being, Martin. I actually had him on my podcast. I would love to get him back on here and sit down for a part two. My buddy Paul, dude, I love you, Paul. He says Simcoe's jersey is up on the wall of fame. I love you, dude. Thank you. But yeah, it's so listen, man. Enough talk of all this motorcycle stuff. Me and you can sit down here for hours, mate, and just go on and on and on. So we'll save some of this for part two as well. But I do want to transition to my favorite part of the interview where everybody gets to know Cameron Fraser on a personal level. And with saying that, Cameron, I know I hadn't asked you yet, but your beverage, you drink that you guys started. And from the top of my head, it was already in the works when you met and we did our podcast together, right? But since then, man, you've blown up, right? So tell everybody about your drink and the new one coming out, right? And all that, and how you touched base on it a little bit on our first podcast of how you and your partner got started and all that. But tell us where you are right now with your energy drink, which is amazing.
So yeah, with gin, we had quite a good year where we had our first batch produced. I think it was not long before we first connected. So we had this nice batch, which the plan was to go out and sell it over the next year, which is exactly what we've done. So I think it's been a really interesting journey. For myself, I'm quite new, and my business partner as well. We were very new to the drinks market. So it was kind of like, we've got this product, let's just get it out there and see what we can do with it. So first things first, we launched our website and managed to generate quite a few decent sales from there, which was really exciting. But then we thought we need to explore some other avenues because website is great, but because we're not the biggest of brands at the minute, we need to assess other options and see if we can do other things to help generate more revenue and get the product out there. So that's where we decided to do a couple of events, and one of them being Brighton Fitness Festival, which was back in July. And that was really successful. The drink was met with a lot of excitement, and a lot of people were coming to us, and they just couldn't believe that we were basically mixing alcohol with protein. Because I'm sure people have probably thought about it before, but they've never put it into work. So obviously the drink itself, we have we've sold all our product now. So we went through the batch, and now the aim is to move towards another product, which I can touch upon in a second. But the initial product we had was this gin based hard seltzer. So it's 5% ABV. It had 10 grams of vegan protein in, and it was basically a strawberry and raspberry mix. There was also a couple of vitamins in there as well to help with hangovers and things like that. But we can't say it's a healthy drink. But essentially, that was the idea. As we wanted this drink that came to market with the idea of aiming towards people that live healthy lifestyles that also like to drink socially or whatever it might be, and that's exactly what we did. So yeah, we've gone through our first batch now. We're having a bit of a break in terms of we're not focusing too much at the moment because all the product's gone. So the next aim is to go and develop a new batch. But obviously you need a bit of finance to do that as well. So we're just kind of looking at what we need to do to be able to get the next product produced and then to market. But we've got some really exciting ideas. One of them being a low alcoholic version, so 0.5%, where will still technically be the first drink in the UK to mix alcohol and protein. It'll just obviously be on a lesser alcoholic scale. So yeah, that's kind of the plan. Is hopefully start next year we'll be assessing our options and bringing this new product to market. But it's been an exciting year for gin, and who knows? Let's see what the future holds
I
for
love
gin.
it, mate. I love it, dude. Congratulations on your success. When you had told me about it, man, I thought about it. I was like, man, that's definitely different, right? Nobody's done that before. And yeah, I knew it was going to be successful. I just knew it was. And dude, mate,
Appreciate that.
proper mega job on that, man. Can't wait to see the new drink coming out, right? But yeah, man, so let's transition into my favorite part. And the first question I have for you is, do you have any pets, Cameron?
So I don't have any pets like here. I'm basically in my own place. But my mum and dad, when I lived with them, we've always been cat people. So we've got two cats that are still going. I think they're 16 years old now, Bella and Ted. They're actually named after the Twilight characters Bella and Edward. But we didn't really actually like Edward, so we went with Ted instead. We just shortened it to Ted. And Bella, I think that name suits her quite nicely. So actually, it works out quite nice. But yeah, they're 16 now, I reckon. So they've probably not got too long left. But had them since I was about 9 years old, and they've been a part of my life for quite some time. But yeah, cat people and a cat person. I think in the future I'll definitely be getting some cats, and I think I've already got the names in my head of what I'd like to call them. So yeah, a cat person for sure.
Man, I got two cats as well. One's name is Monster because he's an absolute fucking monster, dude. Okay, no bullshit. He's a big cat. He's black and white. He's the sweetest cat. Like he loves to cuddle. Like it's you don't have a whole lot of cats that love to just get up in your arms and cuddle with you, right? Or greet you at the door. He's like a dog. Every time we come home, he's at the door, right, greeting us. But when I say he's a monster and he's an asshole, literally, I can make a gin drink. Right. Put a story. I made a drink. I was making a Moscow Mule, which is vodka and ginger beer and lime, right? And I just got done making it. He jumps up on the counter and looks at me and swats it on the floor. And I'm like, you mother. So I cleaned it up, washed my glass. Luckily, it wasn't a glass, right? Made me another drink. What does he do? Jumps right back on the counter, looks at me, and right back on the floor. And I was like, bro, I'm getting ready to choke the you know what out of you. That's what I mean by monster, right? He's just like, and dude, you'll be walking down the hallway and he'll look at you and like freaking try to climb the wall out of nowhere. He's an awesome cat, right? It's and the other one, her name is Cookie. She's a fat, lazy, loves to be touched, but as soon as you start rubbing on her, she'll turn around and kind of nibble on you for a second, then run away and then turn right back around and want you to love on her. She does not like to be held. You can only hold her for literally 10 seconds and she's trying to get down.
Oh, bless.
But yeah, she's awesome. She actually ran away last year for 3 months, bro. And I thought she was
3
gone
months?
forever. Yes, dude, got outside, ran away. So I took her litter box and I stuck it outside right here on the front porch. Maybe if she was in the area, she would know where her home was. Yeah, she come back after 3 months, skin and bones. Didn't eat very good because she is not a fighter. She's a lover, right? So yeah, now she's plump again, right? So, but yeah, it's awesome,
Yeah,
man.
cats are crazy, aren't they? Very mischievous as well. I always see videos of cats like swiping glasses and just they love to knock things off tables, don't they? Which from memory, my cats definitely they did that when they were younger. But now they're older, they just don't care. They just want to like sleep all day and occasionally go outside. But yeah, they're just mischievous creatures, aren't they?
Yeah, they're beautiful creatures, man. I think this world would be a better place if everybody had a pet.
100%.
You know what
They
I mean?
offer a lot of love, don't they? Dogs
Unconditional,
and cats. Yeah.
right? So this is how I'm gonna phrase this. People look at me different for this, but there's two types of love. There's conditional and unconditional. Your unconditional love is the way your dog loves you, the way your cat loves you, the way you love your kid. Okay. Uh, all other forms, types of love are based on a condition. What do I mean by that? I mean, you're with your girlfriend, you've been together 5 years, but she goes out and sleeps with five guys. It's over, right? So that's based on a condition. If you think about it. That's why I say that, and in pets, man, they have this way where it's like you can lock your dog up in the trunk for a day, open it up, man, and he's just kissing you and loving you all over. Go on and lock your girl up in the trunk for a day and see what happens, right? You're gonna get stabbed, is what's gonna happen. Police coming and everything. So yeah, I mean, it might be wrong for me to look at it that way, but that's how I kind of always viewed it. You know what I mean? Meaning that you don't have any kids yet, but one day you will, and it's there's a certain switch that flips on that you don't know you have, right? And it's you look at the world different. You look at just in general everything different. And it don't matter what my son would do. He can go out and do whatever it was, but I'm always gonna love him the same, no matter what he does. You know what I mean? That's unconditional love right there. And animals just bring it out and they make you realize, um, that, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? So, um, do you name your motorcycles, Cameron? Do you have any names for your bikes?
Yes. So I've got over the years, we've got a few. So the first bike I named was back in 2018. It was the newest version of the Yamaha R6, and we named her Rita. Rita Queen of Speed was her nickname. And then when we got my GP2 back in 2020, obviously we had to find a new name for that bike. So when we name our bikes, it's almost like we won't name it straight away. It has to almost come to us. And I remember me and my mechanic Barkers were in the garage in Spain. We hadn't named the bike yet. This was the first time riding her, and the song Lola's Theme came on. And so we were toying with a few names. Layla was one of them. But then Lola's Theme came on, and we both looked at each other and went, this has got to be it. So we went with Lola. Unfortunately, Lola wasn't very long lived because I had two massive crashes at the start of that year and basically destroyed her. So Lola didn't last very long, unfortunately. But then we transitioned the next bike because it was the same bike. It was GP2 still, just basically knew everything. We transitioned Lola into Lolita. We thought we'd take elements of Rita and Lola and then make Lolita. So that was then the bike I won the championship on and rode for the last kind of 3 years. And then the latest bike we came, and obviously it's a Suzuki. The typical thing with Suzukis is everyone calls them Susie as like the nickname. We thought we're not doing that. That's just like so standard, so boring. So we're like, again, we just couldn't. It took a wee while, but we did eventually come up with the name Suki, Suki the Suzuki, and I think Suki is a Japanese name, so it kind of fits really nicely. That's one thing I want to do next year is get like a Japanese sticker or something on the bike, which translates to Suki. I think that'd be quite cool. So yeah, Suki's the latest bike, and therefore, yeah, to answer your question, we name all our bikes.
I love it, dude. I love it. They're like people. I consider motorcycles like women, and this is why I say that. You had Lola. You first met her. She's the most beautiful thing you ever seen in your life, and then Suzuki comes around. Now she's just drop dead gorgeous too, as well, right? And when you go from one girl to the other girl, aka motorcycle, you got to treat them different. You talk to them different. You ride them different. The way they handle's different. I mean, you got to learn it all over again, just like a real woman, right? When you go from one girlfriend to the other, it's the same thing. It starts over all fresh again. The charm on the last one ain't gonna be the charm on the new one, right? So, yeah, it's all that good stuff to go along with it.
That's it.
What's your dream car, bro?
Dream car. It probably would be something standard like a Lamborghini or Ferrari, but being British, if speed wasn't the objective of the car I have, I think it'd be cool to have like a Rolls Royce or like a Bentley or something like that, which you go anywhere, people are going to look at it and they'll be like, "Fuck, that's a Rolls Royce," or "Damn, that's a Bentley." So I think if looking cool is the objective, then yeah, I'd probably go with something like that. But if speed's the objective, like who doesn't like a Lamborghini or Ferrari? And again, they do look pretty dope. So yeah, that's what I'd go with one of those cars.
What about an American muscle car? Do you have a favorite American muscle car, like a Camaro or a Mustang or?
Oh, I think the Mustang always looks decent, and they always sound meaty. And like some of the TV shows I watch in America, I think the Mustang definitely's got to be up there in terms of sound. I think are they generally quite fast as well.
Yeah,
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 so you
they're
get
fast.
a nice mix. Yeah, so definitely I'd happily have a Mustang or something like that. But at the moment for me, it's a white Ford Transit Custom with some stormtroopers on the back. So if anyone's in the paddock and they see a white Ford Transit with some stormtroopers on the back, then know it's me.
I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. I love Star Wars, right? So you do too. So let me ask you this, Cameron. What Star Wars character would Cameron Fraser be?
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan. To me, Obi-Wan is the ultimate Jedi. And the reason why I say that is he's kicked everybody. General Grievous, uh
Anakin.
the one chosen Anakin, right? Darth Vader, dude. I mean, Obi-Wan is the ultimate Jedi in my personal opinion for sure. Speaking of Star Wars, have you watched well, it's not new anymore, but the Acolyte that come out, the series? What'd you
Yeah,
think of it?
I love all things Star Wars.
Me too.
Before I answer that question, I'll ask you a question, and I'm going to judge you on your answer. What is the best Star Wars film?
Are we including the cartoon series too as well, or just the
No, we're
films, the
going just
major
the
films?
films. Yeah, 1 to 9, which is the best. And
Oh,
we're going in like not the film, the order they came out in, just like the actual chronological order, which is the best.
man, that's a great question because they all have their own part to telling the overall major story. But I think the one that stands out to me the most, man, that's a good one. Off the top of my head, Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, legend. That's
Yeah,
my favorite one.
yeah,
Revenge of the Sith.
yeah, Revenge of the Sith because it shows how uh to me how the Jedi's really are, right? So me, if it was a real thing, I wouldn't be a Jedi, I wouldn't be a Sith, I'd be that medium walking in the middle. And the reason why I say that is because I want the kids and I want to be married. When you're a Jedi, you can't have none of that. You can't even love, right? So, uh, but Revenge of the Sith shows how Anakin transformed into Darth Vader, of course. Uh, what he did as a young kid to get the Sand People back for what they did to his mom, right? That whole, and then the fight scene with Obi-Wan, how Chancellor Palpatine got him to join the dark side because he promised him he'd say Padme. Dude, the whole thing, it's like a complete, almost mini story within itself, and it just grabs you and pulls you in. And every time you're like, holy shit, right? And then, of course, who can't forget the purple lightsaber? I mean, dude, yeah, Revenge
Yeah.
of the Sith all day. Hands down, Revenge of the Sith. Now, my favorite Star Wars character, one of them is Darth Maul. Love Darth Maul.
Oh, it
I
was
wish,
so cool. It
dude, I
was so
wish they
cool.
wouldn't have killed him off so early. And it was a first double bladed lightsaber. I remember I was in the movie theater. I was like, oh shit, real loud. Dude, did you see that? I was, yeah. It's yeah, man. Star Wars all the way, people. You guys are sleeping. Go watch them. Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
But
100%.
the Acolyte. What'd you think of that?
I liked bits of it. I thought it was quite slow getting into it. Like it took a while to build it, but then at the end, I did quite enjoy it. There was some good lightsaber fights. There was some interesting movements with the different characters, and I think we got a bit of a potential view of Darth Plagueis, who obviously Revenge of the Sith he gets mentioned, but apparently they're killing it off. So there's not going to be a season 2 of the Acolyte. Apparently it wasn't met with. I know the OG Star Wars fans hated it, And even though I'd class myself as an OG fan, I like anything Star Wars, so I'm gonna embrace it, in any event. But yeah, I know it got a lot of hate, and I think they decided to can a season 2, which is a shame because I thought there's so much they can do with it. And yeah, as I say, anything Star Wars, I'll happily embrace, and good or bad, I'm going to be watching it.
I liked it. I ain't gonna lie to everybody. I was like, dude, I think it's a great show. And they're like, what? Yes, it's got its nuances. It tells a different story. It introduces new characters or characters people's heard of before if you really pay attention. I think it was a cool concept, but again, it also shows you that the Jedi are not always good and they lie amongst each other too as well, right? So that I enjoyed that because they're not this goody two shoe everybody thinks they are, right? They make mistakes because we're all human, you know. So it's yeah, dude, I thought it was great, man, killing people with no weapons at all, and the sisters, and at the end when you see how it all come together, and Jedi lied about how the family, dude, killing the mom, dude, it was, I don't want to give nothing away, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, man. I did. The only part that I was confused on was when she picks up the lightsaber and it turns red. Like I've never seen that
See,
before.
I got that bit, which only I think if you've watched a lot of like YouTube videos and stuff on it, it does make sense. But I think it's all about when you do turn to the dark side, you bleed your anger and pain essentially into the kyber crystal, which powers the lightsaber. So I'm going to sound like a right nerd here because I absolutely love Star Wars, but
Me too.
it is what it is. Yeah, apparently it's like bleeding all of that into the kyber crystal, which then turns it red.
Yeah.
So I think that's essentially in a nutshell what it is.
Speaking of which, I'm actually buying my son a new lightsaber for his birthday. I gotta
Happy
order it.
birthday to your son.
Yeah, it's November 19th, dude. It's made by Sabers, right? Dude, it's $300, NeoPixel, whatever NeoPixel is.
Oh, wow.
It's and
Looks funky.
it's Luke Skywalker's, but it changes like multiple colors. It has Bluetooth. It's got different sounds. You can change from Luke to Darth Vader. It makes all the sounds. You can drag it on the ground and it does that. Dude, it's awesome, man. I'm gonna be playing with it. Me and my son Star Wars about all the time anyway. So yeah, it's man, I love Star Wars. People are sleeping on Star Wars, man. Speaking of, since we're on this movie topic, are you and your girlfriend currently binge watching anything on Netflix or Apple TV or anything you can recommend to people?
So we've just done The Boys, or I say we've done. We've got
Dude,
like 30 minutes left
bro,
of
The Boys
the
is
season 4 episode, the last episodes. We've almost done The Boys, and that's been a really fun series to watch. I've never seen anything like it, but we've absolutely loved it. So that's one I'd definitely say go and give a watch. We do like a bit of bedtime reality TV, like Married at First Sight, Love Is Blind. We like, going through things like that. But obviously, that's usually when we're going to sleep, so we don't pay too much attention. Outside of that, I'm trying to think anything else that is noteworthy. I just recently, this was myself, I did Monsters on Netflix, the Lyle and Eric Menendez story, which I'd never heard of. So when I was watching this, obviously I knew it was based on a true, like, actual crime that happened. But when I was watching it, it was the fascinating thing for me was having my perspective change throughout the series as to what might have actually happened. Obviously, we know they both killed the parents. I think it's well known, and not hopefully spoiling it for anyone. But they obviously killed their parents, and then. But did they do it out of hate? Did they do it for the money? Did they do it because they were allegedly abused as children from their perspective? So it's like my perspective changed throughout the whole series. At the start, I thought, oh, they just did it for the money. Then as we got through the middle, I thought, oh, it's because they had a traumatic childhood. And then at the end, I was there like, actually, no, they definitely just did it for the money. And it's like, yeah, I thought that was quite fascinating from my perspective. But yeah,
I
that's
love
another one.
shows like that too. I do, man, because it's suspense. It keeps you in it, and it's real life. You're like, oh shit, this could happen, and this happened, right? It's that. I think everybody in the world loves murder mysteries and crime and all that stuff. It's it just pulls us in, right? There's some people that don't, but I think for the majority of us, yeah, we watch a lot of crime. My wife listens to a shit ton of crime podcasts, right? Speaking of which, what podcast do you actually listen to, and you can recommend to people?
Obviously, Pin the Gas is has definitely got to be up there. Outside of Pin the Gas, I do love all things racing podcasts. So I love Pin the Gas. I love Off Track podcast. That's a BSB or like a UK kind of racing one. The
Dave
Race
Neal.
MotoGP. Yeah, Dave
Yep.
Neal, that's it. The Race MotoGP with I forget their names, but I listen to that week in, week
Me
out.
too.
And then outside of that, I love listening to I don't even know how you'd categorize them, but podcasts where they'll speak to someone who's an athlete or like a business person. Over here, we have Diary of a CEO. Don't know if you've come across that
Yep.
before.
I have it.
Really, really like that.
Yep.
You guys have got the Huberman podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Huberman, I think his name is. I
Huberman.
love
Yep.
listening to that. Yeah,
Me
because
too.
he has so many different
Yep.
guests on there. Chris Williamson, I think his name is, who does Modern Wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy I love listening to. And then outside of that, I'm a big Nottingham Forest fan. So we have the Garibaldi Red podcast over here, which again I love listening to because they talk all things football. And yeah, I guess that's kind of it. I'm just very into most sports. So for me, I love listening to boxing podcasts or watching YouTube videos, UFC, and then motorbike racing and football. They're kind of like my 4 sports that I follow really closely and really enjoy watching.
Yeah, I listen to most of those podcasts you just named too. Of course, Chasing the Racing, right?
Chasing the Racing, yeah, forgot
Yep.
about them. Another great podcast.
And then of course my good mate Dave Neal, Off Track podcast that you already mentioned. But I'll make you 2 suggestions of 2 motorcycle podcasts to listen to too. One of them is my mates called Moto PG podcast. They're from Australia. Man, they have a great motorcycle racing podcast. Tugs, Fredo, and Boris. Just listen to it. Cameron, you're gonna laugh your ass off. It's hilarious. They're awesome. They have nicknames for all the riders and they talk shit, dude. It's a proper mega podcast. Them, Moto PG, not GP, but Moto PG. And then the other one is our American version of Off Track. We have a podcast out here called Off Track. And it's run by Jason Pridmore and Greg White. They both are commentaries within Moto America. Jason Pridmore is a time national championship here in America, and he's also raced like the 24 hours and all this stuff around the world. So his knowledge he brings into it because he's experienced, and he also helps younger kids to this day and coaches them and all that stuff too, right? But it's called Off Track, and it's really good too because they go over Moto America, World Superbike, in Moto GP. So yeah, I suggest that one. Have a listen, man.
Yeah, I don't have to check them out. I like listening to new things. So yeah, happily.
And then you get to stay up on Moto America too as well because you get to hear all about it, right? So yeah, let's go. Speaking of which, did you watch any Moto America racing?
So I always watch the highlights because we can't get it anywhere here in the UK in terms of like on normal TV or anything like that. So typically, I follow the Moto America Instagram channel, so I'm always looking at the results, and they're really good on reels. So you get to see like the baggers, super sport, and obviously the superbike class. Always get to see highlights, and yeah. So generally speaking, I'll keep up to date with it. Josh Herron, he was the champ this year, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And then super sport, I can't remember who it was, to be honest. But yeah, I like to follow it, and as I say, like all things motorbike racing, to be honest, I enjoy watching.
Me too. I tell you what, when the season starts next year, I got you, bro. I'll send you a link to where you can watch the full season of Moto America in 2025. All you got to do is log in, and I'll get you set up. That's off camera. So I can't do it for everybody, but I got you, Cameron. Because I love, like I said, even my mates across the pond, you guys don't, it's not like, that's what I love about BSB too. It's free. Everybody in the world can watch it by going to the website. Most other motorcycles you got to pay for, right? And it's expensive. I pay for it, but I'm gonna hook you up with all my access, and you can just log in and enjoy the 2025 season, my friend, on me for sure.
Legend.
So on the starting grid, what is your tire guy or whoever, umbrella guy or girl, whatever it is, stay on there. What do they tell you right before you take off?
So usually it's my girlfriend doing my brolly, but everyone kind of knows to leave me alone when I'm on the grid, so no one really says anything because I like to just sit there, look at the lights, go through some laps in my head, and just not really engage with anyone because I'm doing my own thing. Obviously, if Larry on the mic comes up and asks a few questions, then I'll happily just say a quick few words to him. But yeah, generally speaking, no one says much to me because I'm trying to get in the zone. I have my focus, and I'm just trying to go through things in my head before we actually get going. But the last thing my mechanic always says to me, he's usually the last one. Once the umbrella's gone down, once everyone's got off the grid, usually we have one mechanic with us to do the rear stand, and then they obviously go off themselves. The one thing he always says to me is enjoy yourself.
Yep. Have fun.
So, and
Absolutely.
yeah, that's exactly, and I think that's the principle we're all there to do at the end of the day, especially at this level. You need to enjoy it, 'cause if you're not, it's obviously a lot of money and time and energy going into something, and if you're not enjoying it, then yeah, what's the point? But for
100%.
me, you referred to earlier about obviously having a very positive vibe in your camp. I think that's very crucial. Everyone's got to be having a good time as well. And again, at the end of the day, I would say I put myself under the most pressure. So it's pointless anyone else doing it to me because I'm already giving it to myself at the most. So if someone else comes and adds to that, then it's not gonna help. So yeah, positive vibes is what you want in camp.
110%. That's so it's to me, it's one of the most important things to have within a team. 100%. Right. Because nobody wants to show up to a negative garage all the time and race, right? You're just not happy. They're not happy. It's like, what's the point? I could sit at home and play Ride 5 on my PS5, right? And have a lot better time than showing up here in this misery shithole, right? I mean, let's just be honest. Are we ever gonna see Cameron at the TT?
No, you wouldn't see me as a rider there. I certainly want to go and watch. It's on my bucket list. Definitely not to ride though. I think the riders who ride the TT have to be another level of crazy. And it's funny because I was speaking to someone about this, and obviously we will have a limit as to what we would challenge ourselves to do. Because at the end of the day, we know with motorcycle racing, there is a big risk. We know that, every time we step out on track, there's a chance, very small chance, that we might not come back. Um, but in your head, and this is what I was speaking to someone about, we say to ourselves, yeah, it happens, but it's not going to happen to us. It very well could, but in our heads, we say it's not going to happen to us. I think for me, if I was going to the TT, I know that, it happens to a few people every year. And so for me, it'd be a case of, okay, well, it could happen to me.
Yeah.
And therefore, I wouldn't want to put myself in that situation and those around me knowing that it could happen. And I don't think I'd be able to then perform to 100% either because that would be in the back of my head. Whereas when I come to a UK circuit or, just a general race circuit, I always have that in my head that, it happens, but it's not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen to me, or it's not going to happen to me, which I know is an interesting perspective. But I think that's like with anything. It's like if you to go skydiving, obviously there's a 2% chance or like a 0.5% chance that something could go wrong. But you say to yourself, it's not going to happen to me. And that gives you the confidence to go and do it. So yeah, that would be my assessment of the TT. I'd love to do like a lap as well. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to just go around the island, experience what it's like from 50% of what they do. Well, to be honest, it probably wouldn't be 50%. It'd be more like 10%, 5%. Even that would probably be enough to go, yeah, shit, these guys, what they do is just unbelievable. But yeah, I wouldn't race there.
It's my favorite race every year is the TT. Ever since I first got introduced to the TT, it's my number one yeah, race of every year. I think that the riders that do it, it's not the solos that are the craziest, it's the monkeys in the sidecar to me that are just plumb
Oh, yeah.
freaking nuts, right? But to me, it's like the best way I can explain it to people is people that race on the roads, whether it's the Northwest 200, the Macau, Oliver's Mount, yada yada yada, right? Estonia, or wherever, right? It's they feel just as comfortable on a public road in a confined space as they do on a short circuit with a wide open space, right? And that's what separates the two legends of the sport, the TT guys and girls and the legend as yourself, like BSB, Moto America, or wherever, right? So you're a big fan of the TT, right? So I'm gonna ask you this question. I only ask this question to people that are fans of the TT, because if you really don't know nothing about TT, it's not even worth asking. But in your personal opinion, the list is long, but I'm going to give you two names to choose from. In Cameron's personal opinion, who had the greatest ever TT comeback? Okay, Connor Cummings or Ian Hutchison?
I think I'll have to say Ian Hutchinson. Connor Cummins has done obviously great things at the TT as well, but I think Hutchie, he's just had so many setbacks, whether it be with his leg or even like recently with having a stroke, and he seems to just keep coming back. And he's won so many things at the TT. I think he even set the record for winning. I think it was 5 out of 6 main
Nobody's
races
done
in
it
1 week,
since. Yep.
which is just crazy. I mean, people have come close, like Dunlop and Hickey and Harrison recently. He's kind of got to the forefront, but yeah, I can't say that anyone's had a better comeback than Hutchie.
No, absolutely not. And going on with that, I got another TT question. In what year in track was the first Grand Prix race at?
Oh, at the TT.
Just the very first Grand Prix.
Oh, that is a good question. So in what year? I'd have to say it'd probably be like 1952, maybe something like that. I don't know
Nine,
how if I'm.
it's 1949.
Oh, that's close. Okay.
Yep.
And the track, I'll say the TT because I know that used to be in the
Yep.
MotoGP calendar, and it
Yep.
is. Yeah,
Yep.
nice.
It is.
Yeah, because that used to be
Absolutely.
part of the MotoGP calendar. But let's be real, you wouldn't get like Pecco Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, and all those lot doing the TT nowadays. It'd be
No.
yeah, it'd be far too risk averse for them, I think. But yeah, the fact they used to race back then when safety was even less than what it is now is just insane. And that used to be a full-on Grand Prix with the likes of Mike Hellwood,
Agosto.
Agostini,
Yep.
yeah, the
Yep.
likes of that, who is just crazy. But fair
It's
play to
nuts.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fair,
fair play.
absolutely fair play to them, right? And to me, just to touch back on that TT question, man, is like, dude, the list is long on all the comebacks, and they're all not only unique but beautiful in their own way. And when you hear it and what they went through, you're like, fuck, dude, like nobody else would have done that on the planet, right? But to me, one of the best ones is Mike Hellwood. And the reason why I say that is nobody's done this since. Is you leave the TT for 11 years and you come back and you win after 11 years away from the TT. That's just like, you know what I'm saying? Jumping straight back into it. Like, yeah, that's just plumb nuts. But, that's just, coming back and not having to defeat injuries and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different, right? And I think he come back just to beat Phil Reed, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know.
Essentially, I'm not the.
Yeah.
I can't quite remember that far.
I know a little bit, right? So yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
I'm a
yeah. I
huge
can
nerd.
tell.
Yeah,
I
I'm
can
a
tell.
nerd, man. I'm a nerd. Uh, what's your favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday? I'd have to say I haven't done like a relaxing holiday in quite some time. The last holiday I went on was a skiing holiday. And for me, I do actually love those types of holidays because you go away for a week and you completely switch off from your phone. You're outdoors all day, you're on a mountain, the air's really fresh, you're having hot chocolate on the mountain, you're exercising. You come back at the end of the day, you're really tired, but it's a good tired. You go, if you're in a nice hotel or if there's good facilities in the area, there's like the saunas and the plunge pools and all of that stuff, which you can go and do at the end of the day, and then you basically have food, you come back, and then you basically want to sleep because you're so tired from the whole day. But for me, I love that because you're disconnecting from the world, you're doing something really enjoyable, The last holiday I went on, as I mentioned, was a ski holiday, but I did both skiing and snowboarding. So I got the chance to learn something new in snowboarding because I've always skied from a young age. And yeah, for me, definitely, those were the really fun, enjoyable holidays that, even though on the one hand, you're not just sitting by a pool, like relaxing all day, for me, that kind of is relaxing because you're switching off, you're getting away from your phone, everyday life, and then you come back at the end of the day and you just have a good sleep. You get up, you do the same thing, you do a day's work of exercise, come back, again, rinse and repeat. But yeah, for whatever reason, they're the most enjoyable holidays for me anyway. But I think this year, me and my girlfriend Paige, we've not been on holiday together, and we've been together nearly almost 5 years. So we've said, right, next year, 2025, we're gonna do a holiday because there's so many places you can go, which isn't a lot of money, and we kind of owe it to ourselves to actually just have like a week of switching off, enjoying some time together, and having a bit of a relax.
Man, that's one thing I love about the UK is you guys are so close to Italy and France and dude everywhere, right? It's not you just go take a train and you're there. Here in America, it's like, yeah, we got to get on an airplane, fly across seas and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's man, dude, awesome. That's awesome, man. Dude, we're almost 2 hours, hour and 45 into this, Cameron. I've had the best time. I do have some other questions, but I'm gonna save those for our next podcast. But the last one that I do want to ask you, before we get into our shout outs and all that is if you can invite any three people to your private track day, dead or alive, right? It could be Valentino Rossi to Houdini. Okay. What three people are you going to invite to your track day?
I'm gonna go Barry Sheen, Valentino Rossi, and Marc Marquez. And Barry Sheen because he's an absolute British legend of the
Yes, he
sport.
is.
He accomplished so much, and he was a bit of a James Hunt of the motorcycle world. So again, I think he'd be class to just have a bit of a conversation with, see like what he got up to in his heyday, and then again just watch him ride. I think that'd be pretty cool. Rossi because again another absolute legend of the sport, and at the same time, it'd be funny to see him and Marquez on track together if I played that out. See if they do a bit of a Malaysia 2015 and knock each other off. But I think Marquez, I'd just love to like have a couple laps behind him, see what he does, see what he's all about, and see what he does different to everyone else. Because let's be real, he does something alien to most riders. So for sure, I'd have to go with that. And if I had a fourth, maybe someone like Pedro Acosta. I think he'd be a good laugh. And again, he's like the next new kid on the block who, if you look at his riding style, he's again bringing something new to the sport and new to the class. So again, love to do a couple laps behind him, see what he's all about.
That's right. Pedro Acosta, man, he's I like him. I met him GP earlier this year when I went. I actually got a photo. Matter of fact, I'll grab it right here and show it to you. Signed by Pedro. I need to hang it. It's in its own little frame, but
Oh, awesome.
and
So
then
cool.
and when I was there, I didn't have nothing for anybody else to sign, so I got some riders to sign the back of it or whatever. So yeah, because I'm that nerd, right? I am. But listen, I do one more question. I will say save them for next time. But if Cameron Fraser was going to run a Superbike BSB team, you're the owner. You get to pick the riders. What manufacturer motorcycle are you going to have, and who's the two current riders that currently race in BSB that you would put on your bikes?
That is a very good question. I think the Ducati is definitely the quickest bike, and you can see that at the likes of Brands Hatch and the tracks where there's a reasonable straight. The Ducati is it's easier for them to actually pass people and then get it in on the brakes. But that being said, the Honda this year looked like a decent bike to ride, and I think the Yamaha obviously won the championship. So I think if it was me and I wanted to win the championship, I was the team boss, I would get Bridewell and Ride on Yamahas because they came 1 and 2 in the championship. They had an outstanding battle, as we all saw at Brands Hatch last race of the year. Came down to the last few corners. It's a fair play to them. That's probably who I'd have to give it to.
I love it. I love it. Listen, everybody, thank you for watching this. And Martin Adams said Barry Sheen is a legend. He is absolutely a legend, right? He was man, I love Barry Sheen. I love to watch him race. I loved his attitude. I loved the way he approached. He was a womanizer, man. He had girls all the way around, smoking cigarettes, drinking. The dude, it was, bro, we don't have that these days. Now it's athletes. They're true. You, Cameron, and everybody else is a true athlete, right? You got a certain bedtime, got to stay on a strict diet, blah, 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 blah. Back then they didn't do it. But I think a lot of that has to go with we didn't have as many processed foods and bullshit back then either, right? Now everything's the way we evolved, everything's processed and all this sugar and all, but that's a whole nother topic. Man, listen, thank you everybody for watching this. I had a lot of fun. It was an absolute honor to have my mate Cameron Fraser back on. I'm gonna let you give all your shout outs, and I'm gonna let you end the podcast. But before I just gotta say, dude, thank you so much for Next Level Financial for all your financial needs. Everybody go check them out. Bisontrack.com, man, for dude, the best people in suits. Not saying all the other suits ain't good, but to have people like that around you and support you like that, and they're always there to fix you whenever is imperative, right? So bisontrack.com. Chef Eats, we have my good buddy, he makes these meals, bro. You put in a microwave or the oven. He makes athlete meals, dude. There's all kinds of meals. It is absolutely amazing. For 3 minutes and 30 seconds, dude, the steak is juicy, the chicken's juicy. So big shout out to Chef Eats, all my American. Unfortunately, he don't ship out overseas, right? But for everybody out here, you guys hear me say it all the time. Chef Eats. Big shout out to my man Martin at the Clothing Kings. You guys can go to clothingkings.co.uk and order all the Pendergast merch. Big shout out to Flying Eyes Optics. There's a sunglass company that I just took the sponsorship on. They're actually made to wear up underneath your motorcycle helmet. They're actually my favorite glasses, and they are made and assembled here in the United States. So you guys can go to flyingoptics.com, use the discount code PENDEGAS10 and get 10% off. And they do have them in prescription too as well if you need them. Big shout out to SFL Mini GP, the best program we have out here in America for our future legends of the sport up and coming. Big shout out to RD Racing and my mate Jake Marsh for all the love and support you guys have always shown me from day one. You guys are absolutely amazing. Vet2 Track for all my veteran friends out here. Cameron, they do he helps cure PSTD one lap at a time. So any of my vets out there that are struggling mentally with anything, reach out to Jim Whitman, get on this program. It's absolutely amazing. You get to come to hang out in Motor America races and maybe work on a team, right? It's amazing what he does to program. Big shout out to 64 Degree Racing, which I hung it up. It's my favorite two-piece undersuit, bro. I know you guys wear 151s out there a lot, and I forget the other brand, but over here we got 64 Degree Racing. There's actually several of them, but my man Tate owns the company. I got a two-piece custom, and it is my favorite undersuit. Not just because it says Simcoe, not because it just says Pendergast. I mean, let's just be honest. If you're a track day guy or a road racer, I guarantee Cameron's got at least 3 or 4 undersuits straight up because you sweat. You don't have time to wash them. You need that. You need that dryness and that smelling good instead of me like, woo, wee, baby. Yeah, I can't do that, So, we all use Under Armour. I mean, Nike Under Armour suits and all that. Man, I've had RS Tachi, all this stuff, right? But the 64 Degree Racing, my favorite two-piece, hands down. I freaking absolutely love it. So you guys go check them out if you're in the market. 64degreeracing.com. Big shout out to my mates BSB Barmy Army, because what he's doing for you guys out there in the program he got, man, is absolutely hands down amazing. As you can see, I got his logo right here on the back. My leather suit on my shirts and everything too. He's another Shane Furrow. So big shout out to him and everybody that runs that program. Sports bike track gear out here in America. That's all I order from STG. So if anybody's out there for market for gloves or a helmet or bike parts, don't go nowhere else. Road Racing World Fun out here. I need everybody to go out there and donate. So Road Racing World out here, what they do, they're fun. You donate, and it provides air fences for all the racetracks across America, which is imperative, right? So, and if you show up at the track and you donate, I think it's like $300. Don't quote me on that. you get a 2-up ride with the legend Chris Ulrich, right? So you get to be on the back of a Gixxer 1000, going warp speed and doing things on a bike you never thought was possible. And you get to be on the back, right? And the donations help, man. So I need everybody to go to Road Racing World and sign up for the Road Racing Fund and donate. And last but not least, Carnes Performance. My buddy Jason has a dealership out here. It's in Pennsylvania. So if anybody's in the market for a motorcycle, dirt bike, ATV, UTV, whatever it is, service work, look no further than Carnes Performance. And again, thank you, everybody. I love every single one of you guys. If you have not yet, please go to my YouTube, Spotify, and all that good stuff. Hit that like and subscribe bell. It helps me out a lot. And Cameron, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get your merch at. They can buy your gin drinks, and they can show you all the love and support.
So yeah, if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Cameron Fraser 66 across most of my social media channels. I have my Facebook page, Cameron Fraser Racing. I've got my YouTube channel, Cameron Fraser Racing, where we've just recently done a series with the Moneta Creative, going behind the scenes of British Superbikes and what it's like to be a team within the British Supersport Championship. So you can follow me there at Cameron Fraser Racing. The series itself is called Ride to Survive. So definitely like, subscribe, and yeah, go and check out some of my videos there. But outside of that, I'd just also like to say a massive thank you, Chris, for having me back on the podcast. I look forward to our next conversation. Time flies when you're having fun. We're almost 2 hours in, but I've enjoyed every second of it, and yeah, I love chatting with you. So shout out to you guys. All the guys you mentioned as well. I know it helps out having a lot of supporters of a channel. So yeah, big shout out to your sponsors. Shout out to my sponsors. Just to rattle off a few: Fairburn, Clearspeed, Gin, Mavis Paint Specialist, Silkaleen, K-Tech, GB Racing, Oak Power PR, JDL Motorcycles, Ben and Ann at Paxford Engineering. There's probably a few that I'm just reading off that I can't quite remember, but yeah, massive shout out to all of my sponsors. My mum and dad, girlfriend Paige, Mechanic Barkers, Ollie. If you guys are listening, thank you for everything you do for me. And then last but not least, my 66 Club supporters. So if any of you guys are listening, a massive shout out to you guys. This year I've ran something new, which is my 66 Club. And basically people pay a minimum donation of £66. That money goes straight into the race account and then helps with things like, tyre bills,
Pirelli tires,
fuel, exactly, race entry, all that good stuff. So without those guys, it also wouldn't be possible. If I'm to just quickly dive into that just for another second, with that donation, you get a Cameron Fraser Racing 66 Club t-shirt, which we'll be doing a new design for next year. You get your name on a board, which is shown at every single race weekend we go to. You get automatic entry into all the prize giveaways I'll do throughout the year, whether that be, different t-shirts, one-offs, race worn gloves, etc., etc. Always trying to think of new ways. And the other way as well is we do a prize draw at every single race weekend to see if your name can go on the bike, as well as name on a website. So yeah, that's my 66 Club as well. If anyone wants to get involved, then all they need to do is just drop me a DM and I can share them a link. So yeah, hopefully I haven't bored everyone with that little monologue. But yeah, thanks for having me on again. And yeah, appreciate everyone's support.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate all the love and support. It's an absolute honor to have you back on. It's more of an honor to be mates and friends than anything, for sure. 110%. I love supporting all my friends. So listen, it's not limited just to people in the UK. All my friends out here in America can go to Club 66 and sign up and help the legend out. You guys see my merch, right? I don't get this for free. I pay for it. I want to support my friend and help pay for those Pirelli tires, right? Because they are not cheap, right? Or entry fees or whatever. So what are you guys doing? Go sign up for Club 66. Go follow him on all our social medias. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute honor to sit down with the legend himself, Cameron Fraser. We'll see you guys soon. All right, let me end this. Cameron, give me 1 second.